Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. In this video, we're going to cover some basic things that you need to know if you're starting a company. Whether you're starting a general company to do general sales or whether you're doing a tech company, there are some basic things that you need to keep in mind in order to set things up correctly and not cause problems for you. My name is Jubin Dana with Dana Legal Services. We focus on patents, trademarks, and copyright. And with me is
Marta Vanegas with Vanegas Law Group. We focus on small business counseling and employment, and we are in Walnut Creek, California.
All right, Marta, so let's jump right into it. One of the first things that people do when they want to start a company, they think to themselves, okay, I got to do this, and there's a checklist of so many different things. Let's pick a couple of basic fundamental ones and touch base on them. I think what would be your first thing that you would look at if you were starting a company or advising a client that wants to start a company?
I think even before you want to start a company, the question is it a company? Is it a corporation? Is it something else? Because
what's the difference between, how do I know which one
there
I
are
need?
many other things that you could be. You could be a sole proprietor, not that I recommend it, but there are many people who are mowing lawns as a sole proprietor and they have no issues with that. If you are, however, incurring certain liabilities for which you don't want to be personally liable, then you should create either a company with limited liability or incorporate as a corporation. So the idea is that the liability that you're incurring as the business would be separated from the liabilities of your personal life, of your house, your mortgage, your car, your boat, your horse, whatever you have. And this is fairly important if you have things that are being delivered to you and you haven't paid for them, if you are having somebody manufacture things for you and you are going to have to pay for these things later, partially paying for them later. If you're leasing, for example, an office space, that is a liability. You're making a promise that you're going to pay X number of dollars over a term of certain months or years, unless you're lucky enough to have a month-to-month lease, but then it's very expensive to have a month-to-month lease. So you have to kind of know what it is that you want to do, and then you have to assemble your team, and there should be a team that really advises you on this. A lawyer can advise you on what shape or form to incorporate, and it really depends on what you want to do. But you need to have a certified public accountant holding the hand of your lawyer, because your lawyer is not going to make business decisions. You are going to make business decisions, but you cannot make a business decision without knowing the tax ramifications. Your biggest expense is not knowing how to get rich, and your second biggest expense is your taxes, because they are going to come at you, and they are coming at furious velocity, and there is no way out from taxation or death. So you better have a CPA. Now your CPA wants you to have a bookkeeper. So ideally, your CPA has a bookkeeper in-house that can keep your books or can refer you to somebody good who they have an established relationship. What's important is that the CPA and the bookkeeper has to use the same operation system. So nowadays it's QuickBooks Online, but if one of them wants to use this and the other one wants to use that, then you are in big trouble not being able to have the two communicate.
Now, is there a preferred way that people create their company in terms of SCorp or LLC, or is it depend on exactly, like you said, what you're going to do?
It depends on what you're going to do maybe a year from now. Okay. So I think if you are really, really small and you are foreseeing that for a certain number of years, you are going to put in a lot of elbow grease and just grow your company on your own back, then I would probably start you out as a limited liability company, because it's unlikely that you will need to take in convertible notes or other equity-based financing that venture capital would provide you with. So if you are starting a company with you, yourself and I, and maybe using family money, using your trust fund, I hope you have it, or using a bank loan, then you're fine with an LLC that will isolate you as long as you observe the requisite formalities of having a company. And when you are an LLC, you can have yourself taxed as a partnership or as an S corporation or as a corporation-like entity, so a non-disregarded entity, and it's a double negative. So you want to be the corporation or a company as a disregarded entity and have that flow through taxation. So you will be the one paying the capital gains taxes, luckily, if you have capital gains income, and not have to do double taxation. But sometimes it makes sense to be a C corporation. Sometimes it makes sense to be an S corporation. A lot of years ago, lawyers could not have been partnerships, so they were all law corporations. And then limited liability partnership came in, which is what lawyers do instead of an LLC. We do limited liability partnerships, so LLPs. Lawyers and professionals can be LLPs. So your accountant should be really good help in deciding how you want to tax that entity.
Right.
If you are taking in venture financing, then probably you should incorporate in Delaware, and probably you should incorporate as a C Corp, because that's what everybody is going to be familiar with. Then you can have multiple classes of shares, because as an S Corp you can't, and you have a limitation of how many shareholders you can have, etc., etc. So it pays to know what you want to do a year or 2 or 5 down the road. So business plan. People say, I don't know how to write a business plan. Well, that's the plan. Are we building something that we are hoping to sell on the market and an initial public offering, or sell it, be bought out by Facebook, Google, etc.? Or are we building something ourselves that is going to provide us with a nice middle class, upper middle class living, but we are not going to, be serial entrepreneurs and start one startup after the other? These are the variables.
So that's how that's the things you do when you're going to create your company, in terms of deciding what your business is, to decide what kind of entity you're going to be, making sure you have your accounting in place and things like that. What about in terms of your business name and all of those things? What things should you be thinking about as you come up with a name for your business, in terms of protecting that name, registering it, all those kinds of things?
So I would be very boring, and I would start with a business name that's not really relevant to the business. And I would hire an IP attorney to research my name ideas on what would be a good trademark. It is really quite an esoteric topic that probably would be another lecture, but don't try to wait until you have the perfect trademark. You can just start your corporation with a very boring name. You and I could do J&M, enterprises, and then we could do DBAs and use our trademarks to delineate our brand once we have formed an understanding of who our customer is, what is our product, where, what is the image of this brand, because you kind of, when you are branding, you are not just thinking of a name. But definitely don't slap down a name and then think that that's gonna be great. Your file documentation may be rejected by the Secretary of State if that name is already in use and you are not distinguishing enough. And then comes this interesting thing when there are a lot of companies who are called the same name, generally speaking, but they have like a little bit of distinguishing. So one of them is J&M Enterprises, and one of them is J&M Consulting. And then it really doesn't distinguish the two of them too much, but that is why, because they have not married themselves to a trademark until they have known what their product is going to be, who the customer is going to be, and what the branding strategy should be for that. So I think that's a little bit, I would divorce the name and the trade name idea from the idea of the corporation, and just like keep the focus on getting your financing, getting your employees, getting your product plan, getting your vendors, your insurance, your CPA, everything, all of your duckies first, and have good group of lawyers advising you on your IP and on your branding strategy. Maybe you have to have a PR
Right.
component to this who can really, or a marketing component to this who can really drill down in the image that you're trying to create with your branding. So I can, for example, I can see your Dana Legal Services. You have a delta there. I'm instantly thinking science, you know, like this is such a sophisticated industry. You should not, if you are an entrepreneur, you are probably really good as an entrepreneur. You just stay in that lane and hire somebody to do the branding for you and with you.
That's a great recommendation in terms of branding. Let me ask this, and you mentioned it, so I just want to get this last point in. You mentioned the word insurance. But what are the different things that you can buy, or you should buy, or you should think about buying as insurance? Let's say if you're a tech company, you're a company that's going to create technology and sell technology. What's the insurance that you need?
I
Or is
think
that
what you
too long a
need
list?
is, it's too long a list. And then I'm not really an insurance agent, but there are so many different insurances that you can get that a good reinsurance agent would probably be able to put together a portfolio that's good for your industry. So for tech, I would think you probably need the general liability. You probably need directors and officers. So that's kind of like board malpractice insurance, or just generally insuring yourself for a claim against you by an investor. And then you probably need cyber stuff protected. If somebody steals all your things, then you should be insured for that.
So
you probably should
say,
have an umbrella. That's like an interesting thing where you feel like there are all these pieces in the insurance puzzle, but you want to make sure that your coverage is at the level where somebody who would want to sue you perceives you, right? Because the idea is that you are deep pockets, that's going to attract potentially claims. So that's why it's good to have an additional coverage, an umbrella coverage.
I think the most important thing you said is this: find a professional that knows insurance and get them to help you.
Exactly.
It's too much guesswork to try to work it all out on your own.
Your business lawyer should probably know a couple of good insurance referrals. I would not just go and Google. I would go with, pick your lawyer. Your lawyer should know a CPA. Your lawyer should know. We also know the CPA is not to hire. I'm not joking. Like, you hear things. If you have a business attorney, then they probably either know good CPAs, insurance agents, bookkeepers, even a good business banker, or they can refer you to someone who does, or they can call around for you. Lawyers love to call other lawyers and brag about, oh, I have this new client and they have this problem. Can you help me? So I think it's very important that you assemble this like team of consiglieri, to use it's in vogue now to refer back to The Godfather, since they had the anniversary. So you ask your advisors. You have to have your advisors hold your hand. I think the two most useful things even for me as a small business owner, is my business lawyer and my CPA, and my CPA has in-house bookkeeper, and that's invaluable because I don't want to know that much tax law. I think I already know too much and it's keeping me up at night. So you really need those to drill down. Now, I don't think that you need to hire one lawyer or one law firm for everything. You can hire a smaller law firm like mine and like yours, Jubin, and then we would go out and assemble the team for you that could serve your interest, so you don't have to go and pay outrageous fees to a larger law firm. When you are at that stage that you can afford those fees, we will be happy to see our children grown up and fly out of the nest. And then somebody else will probably pay that bill and not you. So I think you need to put together this team of your advisors. And then the next thing you need to know is you need to know how much money you will need a month. So you need to drill down on who your vendors are going to be for everything.
Right.
So you need to think about this a little bit. And that's another thing that keeps people up at night, is the not knowing what software, what computer, what phone, what location, all those
Office
details.
chair. Yeah,
Yes.
office chair.
Do I
This,
want the office chair debacle? Do I want the regular phone or do I want VoIP? All of these things come with different costs, although I think they are now, whatever. If you need a phone service, then it's going to be X, but you need to know how much that X is going to be. You need to know what your product's going to cost, whether there is market for your product at that cost, with your profit margin, how much profit you would need to make sense for this entire thing. And then who gets what done? I think it's a big mistake to think, I'm just going to work all the time and I will get everything done.
Yeah.
Because first of all, you're going to not be working all the time. Nobody works all the time. And second, there are so many other interesting things that you could be doing. You want to sleep, you want to eat, you want to cook your food. Probably you want to see your children,
Right.
maybe. And you want to be able to have people pick up the slack once you're busy. So figure out what you can delegate and start delegating early, because otherwise this is going to take way too long. You're going to be burned out by the end, and you're not going to have your vision manifested because you are just so busy with the tedium of every day that you're not being able to execute on your vision of what your company should be. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, so just to summarize then, get a team together that knows what they're doing. Your lawyer can be a very good starting point in terms of getting you in touch with other people. And then from there, you'll start to make a business plan, know what your finance needs are. And I think we can cover many, many more things, but I think those 2 points are very important. Get a team together, understand what your financial needs are. And from there,
understand what your product is or what your service is.
Okay.
And that may change. I'm not saying you have to have it completely drilled down. As you are coming along, it might change. And you have to have people who have that flexibility that they can adapt the structure. But kind of sort of who your customers are, that's a very good place to start. What is the need that you're filling? Who has that need? How much money they have available for you? That's one end from which you are approaching it. And the other is how much your operations are going to cost. And then hopefully what they are paying is going to be above what your operation is going to cost. And that's your profit. Yeah.
It's always good to have a profit.
Oh, preach.
Well,
thank you so much.
Yeah, Marta, thank you for doing this and talking about this topic. That's it. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.